Hey everybody, welcome back to the Outcomes Rocket here, recording live at Vive in Los Angeles this year. Well, today I have the privilege of having two guests. And by the way, guys, today's my birthday too. So
happy birthday.
Yeah, it's so great. Great to be here at such a vibrant event with two amazing leaders in healthcare. Reena Sooch, partner at Day One Strategy, no stranger to the podcast. You guys have heard from her before. She's here with us again. Arti Pullins, she is the president and chief health officer at QuestionPro. I want to welcome you both to the podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having us, especially on your birthday.
Absolutely. Always happy to be here at Outcomes.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to have you guys here. Now, we're going to be talking about the Clinical Companions Report, a very exciting report that was released by both of your organizations here at the event. But before we do, let's tee it off with helping the listeners understand a little bit more about your organizations. Tell us about them.
Sure. So I'll talk about QuestionPro first. QuestionPro is an experience management software company, and we collect any and all sorts of data. So we're the data geeks when it comes to understanding your customer, understanding your market, understanding your employees. We can go out and actually collect any sort of segmented data that you're looking to do. And we do it at a global level. So we're pretty excited to be here today and to launch this incredible market research study here at Vive.
So Day One Strategy is a global market research, insight, and data company which helps clients, in particular life sciences, medtech, biotech, launch new molecules, new drugs to market, but also digital. And that's where I come in and my team. We're a digital strategy team which are focused on generative AI, digital apps, wearables, and what have you, and what they mean for healthcare. And it's been something we've been doing for many years. So we're really excited to have partnered with QuestionPro and bringing together the hottest topic, which is everywhere at Vive, which is generative AI and what it means. For us, in my role, clinicians are really key to entry for tech, which is why we felt this report was important.
It's fantastic. The partnership is certainly one that I think deserves some attention. So let's talk about the Clinical Companions Report. Why is this report so important, and what do the listeners need to know about it?
I'll start with that. And Reena, I would love your feedback on it. As Reena mentioned, AI, machine learning, LLMs, these aren't just acronyms being thrown around. These are very important aspects of healthcare, clinical care, patient care, and how clinicians and physicians are actually using artificial intelligence every single day in patient care. And we thought it was extremely important to go and find out from the frontline clinical as well as healthcare specialists and what it means for them. How are they using it? How are they interacting with it? How do they feel about it? There's a lot of chatter about this at Vive, and we were really excited to actually go really deep and be able to find out what do people actually, from a clinical point of view, how are they using it? Are they fearful of it? And what are the implementations of it and applications coming up within the next year or so?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it's a pulse. Where are we with generative AI? There's a lot of, even in our own lives, we live in a bubble when we work in healthcare and technology. So we're talking about this in our work, but I know the reality when I go home or when I talk to my parents. And then I wonder, okay, for doctors, and then what that means for patients. So when we were talking about what we want to create and what we're hearing from our clients and from the market is we know this needs to happen and we need a road to that. We need a roadmap that, but we don't know where everyone is. So we felt, well, why don't we talk to 500 clinicians in the US? A bunch of different.
That was a sample size, 500?
500.
Cool.
Bunch of different specialties. So oncologists were included, primary care was included. And we wanted to really get a grip on, are you even talking about it? Are you using it? And if you are using large language models, which ones? And the findings are super interesting. I had hypotheses, but it's gone. Some have been confirmed, and there's been some things which are exciting and interesting that I didn't expect.
I love that. A mixture of both. Let's unpack it. I'd love to really understand the components of the study, the things that proved in your hypothesis, and the things that surprised.
Sure. So 6 in 10 clinicians are aware of generative AI. So there's a conversation happening. They're aware that there's something about that. So 6 in every 10, which is more than the general population because they're clinicians and they're specialists. So you would expect that. But that does mean we still have a gap of 40-something percent that are not aware at all and need that education. Of those aware, ChatGPT reigns supreme. It was 72%, way ahead in terms of those that are aware and were using large language models. So ChatGPT dominates. Then Google have a play. Certainly their products, Bard, which has been renamed and relaunched as Gemini Pro, which is having huge evolution at the minute. But Bard and MedPalm, by a lesser degree, are also being accessed, but the rest really are not there at all. Whether you're looking at Llama by Meta, Cloud by Anthropic, Cohere. These guys were all included in our survey, but they're not really being accessed. So that's interesting. And when you're thinking for those companies here at Vibe developing tech, what's currently even being used is an important answer and it's an important insight. But we still have a very long way to go. There's this whole entire thing around trust, training, and regulation that came out of the report. So there's this questioning of how accurate the data is that comes in. There's this need for training and equipping clinicians because they do not feel confident. And there's a huge gap in policy because only 1/10 of clinicians had ever seen any policy in their own organization about generative AI. And then more than that, they didn't even know if it was a strategic priority. They don't even know if this discussion is being had at a leadership level. That was the one that surprised me. So it's like 30-something% that said, oh, I think my leadership are prioritizing it.
Yeah.
I think everybody is, right?
And I think that was a really interesting point to that, Reena, that clinicians didn't realize that their leadership are actually looking into different AI models and generative AI tools versus here on the floor, the last 48 hours, all we've heard is leadership's looking into generative AI tools and different type of LLMs in order to implement for better patient care and administrative tasks, like reducing burden, reducing burnout from a clinician standpoint, creating more efficiency. But the frontline teams are not seeing that. They're not feeling that. That was very interesting.
Yeah, that's an interesting finding. And look, for all the providers listening to today's message, are you communicating your strategy on these technologies to your team? And if you're not, it's a miss. And it's an opportunity to do that so they could be on the same page and see the vision of the organization. And then the use that I was going to ask you guys. So when you say these clinicians are using them, is this daily use? Is this clinical use? Is this any type of use?
Good question. Everything's about different segmentations. So when you split down the clinicians, there are the hyper users, which are embedding it into their daily life, but they're a small proportion. And then the majority have somewhat dabbled, is the way I'd say it. And we did break down, and in the full report, we showcase how it is being used in clinical practice. So something like clinical documentation that Arti mentioned was up there in terms of one of the most popular ways of using Gen AI. But chatbots and virtual assistants also came up very high. And I'm wondering, if we look at the signals, AI agents, co-pilots, however people want to frame it, are the future. So the fact that they're already seeing that use case is a real positive. The question is, are we bringing everyone along? Because this is, when you break the data down from those aware, those using, and then those applying, the numbers really start to come down. From 500, you're looking at 70 people that really understand what they're doing. So that's a huge road. That's a huge gap. And we have to really think thoughtfully about how we're going to bring everyone along at this speed that we're going at. And the panel I had yesterday, where we talked about this report, we were speaking on stage with the likes of Google, with Suki AI, and a number of others about it's not about speed. It's not about how quickly you're going to get to the line, because you could really mess this up. It's about being thoughtful. Figure out the problem to solve and thoughtfully get there. There's no finish line. This is an evolution and a change. This is changing the world. So let's not change the world overnight. We have to do it step by step.
Absolutely. And I think there's fear, right? If you're a clinician or a physician on the front line, you don't want to make a mistake in patient care and clinical care, right? Nobody wants that. A physician and a nurse and a PA, nobody wants that in healthcare, even on the business and the executive side. So to Reena's point, the panel was very clear yesterday. Take your time, analyze, assess, figure out what are your patient needs, what are your healthcare needs, and then based on that, build and provide. The other thing that Reena just touched on is the usability of AI in the field. I think a lot of it also our data shows is training, how to use it, when to use it, the application on how to use it. And we see this in every technology that gets released, whether it's AI right now or EHR systems almost 10, 20 years ago. It's this idea of I'm fearful because I don't fully understand it. I don't understand the value it's going to deliver to me, my clinical team, my patient at the end of the day. And once that education starts to flow more up and downstream, we'll see further adoption.
Love that. And we've been talking a lot about the provider lens. It'd be interesting to put this report on as an innovator in the space, as a company. So what thoughts do you have for the innovators out there as they're designing their technologies and their solutions for the market?
I would say there's a lot of interesting data here for them to take to providers as a proof of concept for them, right? I know the biggest thing tech companies struggle with is getting access to this kind of data. It's not easy to get 500 clinicians together and ask them questions. So use this is my actual guide to them, because there's so much richness here around hand-holding that's needed for clinicians, the belief that this is going to change healthcare, the need for it, and also the use cases. One of the biggest things we're really conscious of is you're going to build generative AI for sure, but you need to be really clear the problems you're solving and how and what technology is the right one. Don't just build a tech and then think it's going to cover everything, and it shouldn't. So be really targeted is my advice. Take this data, look into it, contact us, of course, if you need any more information. But I feel there's something here for them to really leverage.
That's fantastic. Appreciate that lens. Okay, so the report sounds thorough. They can have access to this?
Yes, they can. Yes, and we'll give the access and the URL link after the podcast. But if you go on QuestionPro.com/healthcare, the data is available there now, or you can contact Reena or I directly, and we're more than happy to give it to you.
Amazing. There you have it, folks. Reena and Arti will include links to the resources, this report that they just launched, in the show notes. So make sure you check that out. The future is here. Let's make it happen.